Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Generations of Change panel through Mural Arts. A special thank you to Victoria Boyer, who organized this evening's event, and to the Mural Arts program in Philadelphia that made this all possible. In the wake of a turbulent, uncertain, and ever-changing America, this panel was assembled tonight to illuminate the progressive work of artists, activists, and public servants from multiple backgrounds, generations, cultures, and influences. Our goal tonight is to inspire, educate, and have an open conversation around what it takes to be a part of sustainable change. Joining us tonight are Erin Wilson, National Political Director for Biden for President, Mia Velez, President of the Latinx Student Organization at Cristo Rey High, Karen Asper Jordan, President of the Cecil B Moore Philadelphia Freedom Fighters, Aram Han Sifuentes, fiber and social practice artist, and Richard Watson, acclaimed multifaceted artist and alumnus of Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. Welcome, everyone. All right, so starting us off today, we have Erin Wilson, who currently serves as a National Political Director for Biden for President. She has served in this role since the campaign launched in 2019, having previously served as Senior Advisor and State Director in the 2018 re-election campaign of Pennsylvania Senator Bob Casey. Erin returned to the Senate in 2017 after serving as Pennsylvania Deputy State Director for Hillary for America and Northeast Political Director for the Democratic National Committee. She has previously worked for several Senate, congressional, and civic engagement campaigns across the country. Erin is a Philadelphia native and a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nina. And it is such a privilege for me to be joined by all of the members of this beautiful panel. And I am humbled and honored to be participating in this discussion with the Philadelphia Mural Arts Project. As a Philadelphia native, there is no doubt the lasting impact and the legacy that the Mural Arts program has within defining who we are as a city and helping to create such conversations about who we want to be, not only as a city, but as a people. And it's been a huge inspiration for me throughout my entire professional career. So as a Philadelphia native, I am not only a University of Pennsylvania alum, but also a Masterman alum. And joining each of you today to speak about the role of youth is such an incredibly privileged role for me to have. As a young Philadelphian myself, I participated in the Philadelphia Student Union, and at a very early age, really recognizing that even as a young person, you can have such a huge voice and be so impactful. And I can think of no better person, particularly in the year that we find ourselves, than to look to lead as example than Mr. John Lewis, who we lost earlier this year. And as we reflect back upon his life at many iterations over the course of the last several months, I'm often remembered the bravery that Mr. Lewis showed as a student, as in his 20s, having taken on the task to confront some really vast systematic issues that obviously continue to this day, threatening his personal and physical safety, but recognizing that he had the power, and reminding myself the role that one voice can have is just so incredibly important. And in my job, I have the privilege of getting to work with folks from all over the country, each who believe in some degree of change. And one of the great privileges that I have had is working with young people, young mayors, young first-time state representatives, people that are running for office for the first time, who each have dynamic ideas for how to change the world and what they think the future could look like, and are daring to speak their voice. And it is a challenge that I would put forth to every young person, but particularly as we start to define, who we want to be and what we want our communities to look at, is what change do you seek to hold? And that a vote that is not cast is a missed opportunity. And so if nothing else, what I would like to encourage folks as a proud Philadelphian is to leverage your voice. because your voice matters. Every voice does. And we should look towards our dear friend and Mr. Lewis and think of him as we make the decisions for how we choose to be impactful and how we choose to advocate.
Absolutely, Erin. You bring up a number of really great points, but I want to drive home the urgency of coming out to vote, you know, no matter what that means. We hear a lot of messaging around, you know, mail-in ballots, but let's say for whatever reason, you cannot get that mail-in ballot, your mail keeps getting thrown away. We hear the message, make a plan, make a plan. Yeah. What does that actually mean? What is the plan?
Absolutely. So the great news about this year is that voters have choices. You know, in Pennsylvania, this is the first year that mail-in voting is available to every single registered voter. And so the goal here is that you have options. So that means, one, make sure you're registered to vote. And a really great tool for that is iwillvote.com, which is a nonpartisan tool that simply provides information for the when, where, and hows of voting in every state. So if you go to iwillvote.com/Pennsylvania, that will help you with everything you need to know about voting in Pennsylvania. So where you're how to register to vote, how to request a mail-in ballot, or how to find a convenient nearby place to vote. And when we talk about casting a ballot early, you have so many options. You can put it in the mail. You can put it in the, go to your county election office. You can drop it off at a drop-off location. But one of the things I want to make sure folks are aware of, because this cycle, there are lots of new rules around how voters register, but any mail-in ballots have to be marked with a black or blue pen, and they have to be put in a smaller secrecy envelope before they're mailed back. So don't forget to use your secrecy envelope. And then if you'd like to vote in person, this cycle, we are having strong protections in place to make sure that folks have no concerns as they go to vote, for those that want to vote in person. But the point is, you have options. You can mail in your ballot, you can drop off your ballot, you can vote in person, but the point is that make a plan that is convenient for you and know how you're doing it. And then work with your friends, family, neighbors to ensure that they do too. I feel like we should have if the catchphrase for 2020 was something, it could be, voting has never been easier.
I'm so glad to hear that message. We're hearing so many different things in the news, and I think that our everyday folk are just wondering what to do and how they can make a difference. If there was one message you could leave us with, we know you have to leave a little earlier, and we're so grateful for your time today. There's a parting message you could leave all of us with moving forward as we look into this election month coming up. What would it be?
It would be that the stakes for inaction are too high. And to remember that on November 3rd, whatever your choice may be, that the stakes for inaction are far too high for who we want to see ourselves be as a nation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Erin. We really appreciate you being here with us today. Hang out for a bit. We're going to get to know some of our other panelists. It's a perfect segue to Mia Velez, our youngest panelist today, who is a senior at Cristo Rey Philadelphia High School. She's a member of the National Honor Society. She serves as a senior class representative to student government and is the president of the Latinx Student Organization. Wow. Mia was appointed to the Philadelphia Youth Commission, Youth Voices, by Councilwoman Maria Quinones Sanchez. She is very passionate about helping others and making a difference within and beyond her community. Welcome, Mia. So you've been with the Youth Commission for about a year now. What issues are important to you, and what fuels your passion for making your voice known as a young Latina woman, as a young person in your various leadership roles?
Thank you so much for that introduction. For me, what I'm passionate about, like you briefly mentioned, is just helping others and making sure the most marginalized people in our communities are being protected in the best way possible. And that's why I believe it's so important that voting this year especially is because this vote goes way beyond us. It goes way beyond one person. It goes to protecting those people in our society who are often underrepresented and not seen. It's just immensely important. And things I'm passionate about personally is the gun violence what's happening with Philadelphia that impacts us every single day. I would like to see change happen within that realm, because too often, you hear of young people getting, killed in the streets, for lack of better words. And it breaks my heart that this is something that we have to deal with in our city, and that I have to be watchful for in the news every single day. I'm passionate about the immigration systems within the United States, being a Latina woman. I'm passionate about the Black Lives Matter movement within our country in America, because it's such a fine line. As minorities, we need to stand together rather than be divided. I'm passionate about so much, and I think even though I'm not old enough to vote yet in this election, I'm going to be talking to my family, my friends, those I know who are old enough to vote, to make sure that they're registered to vote, that they're voting, and where they stand within this election.
Wonderful, wonderful. You make some excellent points, Mia. We're so glad to have you on the panel today. You talking about getting involved at such an early age brings us to and reminds me of our next panelist, Miss Karen Asper Jordan, who is the president of the Cecil B Moore Philadelphia Freedom Fighters. She joined the civil rights movement in 1965. At age 16, under the leadership of Cecil B Moore, Esquire, president of the Philadelphia chapter of the NAACP. As stated in the will of Stephen Girard, Girard College was originally meant to be a school for poor white male orphans. However, it sat in the middle of a community that didn't reflect that demographic. So you talking about the unheard voices. Karen answered the rallying cry to join the picket line until the walls of segregation came tumbling down. The Girard demonstrations lasted 7 months and 17 days and spanned across city, state, and federal buildings, rec centers, educational institutions, the list goes on. Karen's been featured in Emmy-winning documentaries, received numerous community awards, and was instrumental in historical plaques being placed at the subway station named in Cecil B. Moore's honor. In 1971, the closing of an emergency room jeopardized the health and safety of residents. So Karen went to school and became a nurse to serve her community. And her fight continues. In 2017, she retired. 41 years of caring for others. 31 of those years were in the intensive care nursery, where she was known for her ability to connect, teach, and advocate for families. Her mission is to keep the legacy of Cecil B. Moore activism and social justice alive. Welcome, Karen. Tell us more about your life's work and how the single event when you were 16 set you on a life path of social justice and activism through Cecil B. Moore, freedom fighters, and other means. And then how did mentorship play a role for you at that young age?
Girard College has always been in the neighborhood. I mean, you walked around it. You never thought anything about it because that's the way it was. We knew Black people couldn't go to Girard College. Children couldn't go. And when Cecil B. Moore made the call to demonstrate, to tear down the walls of Girard College so the kids can, become a part, that activated everybody. It inspired everybody in the community. We felt that we were going to make a difference. And that's something about young people. We believed. We were empowered. We knew we were powerful. And we believed we were going to make a difference. And coming under the mentorship of people like Cecil B. Moore and Black people like that, Dr. Ruth Hare, all of these people, Mr. Vance, he was one of my teachers. A lot of people that were in our neighborhoods were part of the neighborhood and part of the civil rights movement. How many people can say they saw their teacher on a picket line and they were instrumental in opening up the doors of employment, education, job opportunities? And this is what Cecil B. Moore did. And he was such a commanding figure. You knew who he was when you saw him because his presence was so commanding. This man gave up basically his own life. He was a military man. They were the first to desegregate the Marine Corps. They had to fight for the right to die and the right to fight. He came back to Philadelphia. He became a lawyer. A lot of his cases, he was a defense attorney. A lot of his cases were for the poor. And if you were poor, you got the same excellent, superb, I just lost my train of thought, defense that a man that was paying $30,000. And he would take as much time as he could. And then he became a city councilman, making sure his people got the services that they were supposed to get. He changed voting. He encouraged people to vote. He got people in the unions. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He desegregated so many places that Black people spent their money and couldn't go. Mm-hmm. He fought everybody. His thing was, if racism reared its ugly head, you knock it off. And he used direct action. And his bark and his bite both were bad. Because what he said he meant, and we believed in him, and we would go. There was a saying, we would follow Cecil Moore to hell. Didn't mean we would stay, but we'd follow him to hell. And that's how we felt about him. And being a young person, feeling that way and knowing, we all knew, we were only 15 to 16, you had babies on the picket line walking around with their parents. It was a community effort. And he changed, and the people, especially of North Philadelphia, the gang stopped gang warring, to come to Girard College to help fight desegregation. So this was a community effort. And a lot of people that could not come to the line, a lot of prominent Black folks, they supported it. Okay, so this is what we did. This is how we came up. And we met every major civil rights person, from Dr. King, all of those folks that came to Philadelphia.
I absolutely love that. And we're going to circle back with you as well, Karen, because there's so much meat there in what you're doing. And the work that you're doing, you know, reminds me of what's happening right now. You know, they say there's nothing new under the sun. There's so many young people that are really entrenched in this work. And I think the beauty of the modern technology is that we have a lot of different ways to express this work, right? You know, in the last panel that I worked with Mural Arts on, Art as Activism with Ursula Rucker, we talked about how there are many front lines. There are many ways to be involved and make your influence known, which brings us to our next panelist. Aram Han Sifuentes is a fiber and social practice artist who works to claim spaces for immigrant and disenfranchised communities. Her work often revolves around skill sharing, specifically sewing techniques, to create multi-ethnic and intergenerational sewing circles, which become a place for empowerment, subversion, and protest. I love this, Aram. Aram is a 2016 Smithsonian Artist Research Fellow, 2016 Three Arts Awardee, Sustainable Arts Awardee, 2020 MAP Fund grantee. Her project Protest Banner Lending Library was a finalist for the Beasley Design Awards at the Design Museum in London in 2016. She earned her BA in Art and Latin American Studies from the University of California, Berkeley, and her MFA in Fiber and Material Studies from the School of Art Institute of Chicago. She is currently an adjunct associate professor at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago and the 2020-2021 Artist in Residence at Loyola University, Chicago. Welcome, Aram. So,
thank you so much.
Yes. So I want to jump right in with you. We know that in 2016, 92 million people were disenfranchised and ineligible to vote in the presidential election, and that doesn't include voter suppression. Tell us about your current work with voting kits and the official, unofficial voting station, Voting for All Who Legally Can't project, and how it illuminates this disparity and empowers those who engage with the interactive website.
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction, and I'm so honored to be here with such incredible panelists. So I've been working on this project called the Official and Unofficial Voting Station. I did it in 2016, and with with so much being at stake for this election, I knew that I had to do this project again and much bigger, right? It's basically exactly what it sounds like, right? It's a voting opportunity for people who can't legally vote, because that is such a large population. Of course, youth being the largest population of more than 70 million, right, who are unable to vote. In my practice, I use art as a tool for social change, because I truly believe that imagination is the seed for action, right? And I think like youth really get that, right? In terms of, imagination, is action, is really like the indignation for the ways things are, and imagination for the ways that things can be, right? And so I created these 50 kits called Voting Kits for the Disenfranchised that have a bunch of different objects in it, where anyone can request a kit to reimagine voting and create their own voting station, open for all, right? Because the rhetoric around voting is that it's for everybody, but without really having that conversation that such a big percentage of the population can't legally vote, right? So of course, youth, non-citizens, Depending on what state you're from, those who are incarcerated or formerly incarcerated, because in some instances you can lose your right forever, right? Yeah. Residents of U.S. territories, and people who don't have the specific IDs that are needed, depending, again, on the state. And so, yeah, with this project, I really want to have an opportunity to have that conversation that, you know, voting is so important. And if you can vote, you definitely should vote, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But voting isn't the final answer, right? Like, we actually have to examine the system of voting itself and see who's disenfranchised, and also work to expand voting rights, right? Yeah. So also as part of the project, I started, you know, with the pandemic and questions of accessibility of the project, I created a website, which I'll put in the chat, yeah. Perfect. Which is the unofficial.vote. And so people can go there and cast symbolic votes in 8 different languages. And on the view section of the website, you could see people's answers to "I am voting here because," and they're really, really profoundly powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a chance to explore the website earlier today, and I just loved, you know, you spoke to each point around the different, you know, groups of people that are disenfranchised, from reasons of age, to immigration, to incarceration. And it started to get me thinking. So I encourage everyone to go visit the website. It made me think, and especially as I was talking to this young, passionate, amazing young person, Mia, yesterday, we were talking and I said, "Can you vote yet?" And she's like, "No, I don't turn 18 until next year." And it made me think, you know, it would be wonderful to be able to at least lower the age by 1 year. I mean, how many people are actually 18 when they graduate high school? There's only a percentage, maybe half. I know that I was not. And so I think that, you know, young people and all of these different marginalized groups should have that opportunity. And I feel like you touched on a lot of really great points that I'm going to come back to a little bit later that are addressed in the Breathe Act, which is a reimagining, right, of Black, Brown, and Indigenous futures, including access to restoring your right to vote, and the breaking down of barriers in those spaces, the ending of carceral spaces, immigration, things of that sort. Thank you so much. That brings me to our final panelist for this evening, also an artist, Mr. Richard J. Watson, an alumnus of the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts in Philadelphia, is a multifaceted artist who is widely recognized as a representational and collage artist. He has to his credit many public and institutional murals throughout the city of Philadelphia, liturgical murals within the chapel of the Church of the Advocate at 18th and Diamond Streets, a mosaic tile centerpiece at the Performing Arts High School, and an official portrait of the mayor of Philadelphia, Wilson Goode, in the mayor's reception room at City Hall. There are a few genres of expression through which his talents are not recognized. Concurrent with his work as a fine artist, he is also an actor, human rights activist, and recent Emmy Award winner for his work entitled Cecil's People, the Freedom Fighters, same freedom fighters we're talking about. A seasoned songwriter and solo performer on guitar and banjo, Watson has produced signature branded, one-of-a-kind art-to-wear fashions. Watson devotes many hours encouraging and advising younger artists, amen, by conducting workshops in schools. He's an adjunct instructor at the Pennsylvania Academy for Fine Arts and participates on a variety of professional arts panels. His work is featured in a number of places across the country, including the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts, Sprint Corporation in Kansas, Missouri, and the Federal Reserve Bank Collection in Philadelphia, PA. Richard, welcome. So I want to jump right into your question. What role can artists play in these times of uncertainty and misguided information to support our struggle for justice and equality? And how does your work in particular support that rationality as a personal conviction?
Wow. Boy, hello, everybody. If that were a job description, I would run out of the door. Well, you know, all my life I've been a part of something or another, you know, in terms of what happened with Girard College and Karen and I and a lot of us who were dedicated enough to stick it out for 7 7 months and 17 days, it was just a part of the experience I was having with my life anyway, because I've always been a transient person, like from birth, from North Carolina to New York to Philadelphia, and by happenstance, it was because my family encountered some things. My mom passed away, and then I went to live with my grandparents, and then I lived with some relatives in New York. So each one of these terrains gave me a different kind of navigating skill. Being in the South, as you know, is like naturally like the landscape behind my head. You know, I've always sucked it all up. I've always lived vigorously and courageously to become involved with life. I've never sat on the sidelines in any way to pursue and to develop and to take that and contribute it and give it back. So I'm sort of like in reciprocity, what life gives me, I share with the world. As a creative person dealing with young people in workshops and schools around the area in Philadelphia, North Carolina, and as an adult going back to different cities to do workshops and performances and writing and helping people to understand that they are capable of anything and everything. So the message for me has always been one of courage, one of confidence, and one of commitment. And so the commitment part helped me to stay with this civil rights struggle and this human rights struggle and this spiritual journeys, learning different languages, associating with different communities, and understanding that all the time I was Black in America. So, but being Black in America for a man is an interesting proposition. You know, you can declare it, or you can observe it from the sideline, or you can get in the middle of the fray, and you can fend for yourself, or you can join alliances with other people who are conscious enough to want to be a part of the change that we must be a part of. As an artist, I've always been curious about what can I do with what's presented to me in a creative form. So the church murals talk about the African experience being brought to America as enslaved people and surviving that. You spending 3 years in that church painting murals all around, 14 murals from Genesis to Revelations for no money, just because I was absorbed in it. It had to come out. It was a cathartic piece for me. And so what artists can do in this time in the so-called United States of America, and I don't even call them united, because obviously we live in a time where it's right for interpreting the concept of what is America today as we see it. Artists' missions are to be truthful, to have integrity about your statements, and primarily be thoughtful about your quality of interpretation, because a lot of people now, you know, they can react to things in a creative way, but I'd say perfect your creativity so that it stands out and above, and people can relate to what you are trying to express. That's the most important part of music, of writing, of designing. You don't want to design a building that will fall down because the foundation is not there. You want to be able to build your creative aspect around who you are, and then ask yourself, is this truthful? Is this something that people can learn from and respect and grow from? So the growth part is artist's responsibility is to create with integrity out of your own kind of initiatives and abilities, but tell the truth, speak truth to power, and don't be afraid to be yourself in that mode, any mode, in all modes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here. Now that we've kind of done the lightning rounds and got to know everyone, we can slow down just a little bit. And I'm going to throw this question out to the panel, and anyone can jump in. I want it to feel more conversational than anything, but I will jump in if needed, but I want everyone to relate with one another as well. So Erin set a really great tone. I was going to already ask tonight, with the recent passing of Representative John Lewis and Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, we know now more than ever is a time for us to carry on the legacy of civil rights for all people, and specifically within our realm of influence here in America. In addition to the work that you are already doing, whether you're an artist or an activist, what would you say is one of the most pressing issues we are facing And what is an actionable step or resource our audience can take in order to move the needle forward? So again, the question is essentially, what is another, right? Not a secondary, but I know we all have our platforms and things that we focus on within our work. But what is another pressing issue we are facing? And what are some actionable steps or a resource that you can provide our audience with to get involved, or even if it's referring them to more work that you do, or a website or a location, or how to get involved in their city?
Let me keep going. I have something I think is salient to what we're talking about, and that is, as agents of change, I think it's incumbent upon us to be able to recognize when we can contribute to the movement of progress for people who may be ambivalent and somewhat lethargic, say, what's the use? You know, they don't have that kind of spark. We have to be an agent that is a catalyst in any situation that we find ourselves, without being, proselytizing, without beating on the bush. We don't have to get on the soapbox and rant and rage about the social and political conditions, because people change when they feel associated with the idea that you're putting forth. But you can give them a chance to make that decision on their own by asking questions that you will hopefully stimulate them to answer their own queries about what should I do. You know, wouldn't it be nice if we had a store on this corner instead of this beat up old building that's been here for 15 years? Who owns this building anyway? Do you know the people who used to live here? There are kinds of things that people don't think about because they become so settled within that mediocrity of every day is the same and I wish it would change. So as an artist, as a visionary, some artist friends that I know will take it upon themselves to take a wall and paint it, you know? So if we can be cognizant of the fact that we can help even a homeless person that we know needs some money, who's not even asking for it. Those are the kinds of things that I think bring us together as a people and as a society that will thwart some of the kinds of distortions that people wake up to commit against society. So we can be a wave that turns into a tsunami just by being able to affect people one at a time, as many as we can, without twisting their arm to believe what we're saying.
Absolutely. Thank you.
For young people, I think of the misinformation that's going around. And young people have to learn how to read. They have to read a lot of different things, and they both sides of the argument. And when I think of young people, I think of following. When you follow somebody, you have to believe in that person, but you also have to think for yourself, and you have to question. You don't just accept anything that anybody tells you. You have to look, you have to go deeper. And if you find something that's not morally, it's against your conscience, then don't go with it. And I don't care who the person is. You have to learn how to think for yourselves. You have to read. And if nothing else, stay in school. And if you don't stay in school, get a trade. You know, these are the things I think young people should know, and know that you can make a difference. You know, maybe we're not all at the same place at the same time, but we're all important and we all have a role to play. Whatever your role is, I don't care how small it is, you do make a difference, and you can start at home.
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, I really agree with what Karen and Richard were saying. Particularly, you know, as an artist, I think, and what Richard was saying before as well, of like the United States of America not being united, right? And so for me, as an artist, I create a lot of opportunities where we could come together, various peoples, right, with differing opinions, we could come together and make art together in a room together, right? Because in that way, we could be creative, we can have conversations that maybe, you know, and a lot of people make art with me that I don't agree with, right? And I think like what Richard is talking about, right? Having those one-on-one conversations, and the way that I see it is like, as an artist, creating opportunities for community and people to come together. And that way we're planting these little seeds right? With the voting station and the conversations I'm having around disenfranchisement, like, you know, I don't know what the direct action is, right? Even though I do have like some suggestions of things that you can do, but it's planting those seeds so that people become more and more aware of who can't legally vote. And hopefully, you know, those seeds can grow into trees, you know, and then bear fruit, and then, you know, plant more seeds. So like, I think that is really important to like be present, be active, create communities, create opportunities to gather, and like be engaged in all of that.
Thank you.
I completely agree with absolutely everything that everyone has said so far, as particularly Ms. Jordan. She was talking about young people and our role in society, and constantly questioning. I think the biggest question young people we tend to face is, what can we do? Because as young people, you know, our government, our society doesn't give us much choice or action of things we can do. So I think that's why the Philadelphia Youth Commission for me has been a place for me to put my passion. The Philadelphia Youth Commission, for those who don't know, was founded in 2008, served to, you know, really represent the youth voice within Philadelphia, within city council, the government, and advising the mayor on large things that impact the youth particularly. And so, especially as Aram was saying, when we create opportunities, the Philadelphia Youth Commission, we have done so many events for young people specifically to make sure their voice is being heard within the city government. And I absolutely encourage everybody to do our research. And when we come to these events, we have these really open and honest conversations. So when we go back to the table, we make sure the youth is being heard within our government. So when we constantly question, we need to question ourselves, our beliefs, and make sure it's taken to the proper steps in order to make sure our voices have an impact, because our voices do have an impact, and young people in Philadelphia, we do matter. We just need to start believing in ourselves, just like our government is trying to believe in us as well.
Absolutely. Mia, I want to stay with you for a minute, actually, because to be so young, you are deeply involved already. Were you always just a self-starter? I mean, what got you interested and involved, and what advice would you give to other young people? But I want to start a little bit with your story of like, you know, you continue to take on these different titles, and I'm just wondering also about your school work balance with all these responsibilities, some plans you might have for the future, but also advice for young people that are trying to follow the same path as you and start early and hit the ground running like Karen did and so many of our panelists.
I believe for me, it all kind of started when I was in 8th grade, when the 2016 election happened. For the first time in my life, I truly became immersed in the world of politics, because my teacher had us study the 2016 election and the different policies that were being presented for each candidate. And once I was immersed into that world, I just genuinely couldn't leave. Since then, I've realized that politics go beyond what the spectrum of what you consider politics is. Politics affects people every day in their daily lives. So when I think of politics, I just think of the people around me, the people that I've grown up with in Philadelphia, being a largely minority community. And for school, I try to stay in student government because, like I said, I love helping people. I want to make sure that our voices are being represented within the school community. The Latino Student Organization, I use that as a way to celebrate the Hispanic and Latino culture within my school building and make sure we all are educating one another about what it means to be in these different minority communities, and just to celebrate our cultures. And my balance between the youth commission and school and these different clubs, I think, has just been making sure throughout I take care of myself and my mental health, and knowing when to take a step back and just look at things from a very objective point of view, and just knowing that it's okay to take a breather, it's okay to take care of yourself, and everything will be there when you go back to it. And for advice for people who want to start early, I would just say do your research, educate yourself, find the things that you are passionate about, because anything that you want can be turned into something that has to do with politics. It can be a STEM lab for basketball. You can talk about the pay that women get, or inequality in the pay, the gender pay gap. You can do all these different things within the things you love personally. So just really take a step back and assess, what do I love, and how can I do research on this, and how can it affect change?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I think it is about starting from your place of passion and moving from there. And I love that you made that point about politics because, you know, I used to be one of those people when I was younger. I don't understand politics and but politics is really, you know, our daily lives in legislation and law, right? And, you know, if the people making the laws do not reflect our interests, right? We don't get to live the lives we want to live, and we don't get to create those opportunities for the generations that come after us. I feel like I'm almost looking at a split screen here, looking at you and Karen, because, hold on, there you are. Because Karen, I wanted to talk about and then I want to pass it to Richard after you. What does a lifelong commitment to this work look like? I mean, I was particularly moved by the part of the story where you saw a hospital was closing and people would have to go more than 10 blocks to get care. And so you decided to go to school and get the necessary degree to care for your people and your community. Talk to us a little bit about you know, what that looks like, that lifelong commitment, and also kind of how Mia touched on, what does that balance look like to be able to catch your breath and keep going?
Well, mainly youth. I was young and I knew what I wanted to do. And I think of the journey that I've taken, it doesn't stop. And I think some of it might be that we're that way anyway, that is something inside of us individually that make us want to help, that make us want to give, that make us want to keep our eyes on the prize and just hold on. And when I started school, I mean, I had 2 children. My children were 1 and 2 when I started nursing school. So I had a lot of help, and the community helped me. And it's so funny, I was the only Black student in my class. Even the cleaning people and the cafeteria workers, they were so proud of me for doing what I was doing. They looked out for me. And that was a big help. And sometimes we can just help somebody along. You see somebody struggling, you see somebody doing what's right. And just a kind word, or you let somebody know that you're in their corner. From there, it took me 12 years to get my degree. I was going at night. You know, so I did all of these things. Did it stop me from getting in a demonstration? Nope. I could be coming home, whether it was welfare rights demonstration about South Africa. Those were the things that I could do. It hasn't stopped. Now I'm at demonstrations. I can't walk like I used to. You know, can't keep up with the young folks, but I'm there. If I can't help,
so Karen,
I can give you a couple of dollars.
Yeah.
Something.
Karen, so you did that alongside working a job during the day. Yeah. I want to drive that point home for people listening who feel like, you know, some of us do have the luxury of being full-time activists, right? I personally, you know, I'm an artist and an activist. This is what I do, but I do take on projects that have me in the office. You know, from time to time, I do catch my breath with, you know, work in between. But I want to drive the point home that you don't have to be doing this 24/7 to be making an impact. And what it reminds me of also is that, like, there's strength in numbers. The way you said that people encourage you along your journey, people saw you and pushed you forward. This doesn't happen individually. Liberation doesn't happen in a vacuum. Awareness and raising awareness and connecting with our communities. It's not about being, you know, the most popular and the most liked. It's about that collective work that we do with one another. And speaking of collective, I want to do a quick call for Q&A that's coming up in about 3 minutes. I want to give Richard a chance to respond to that, and Aram, if you have thoughts on that as well. But I want to open it up. I want folk to jump in with their questions from our audience on Facebook, as well as our registrants that are here in the room with us, to start throwing your questions in. I would love the panelists to get a chance to really talk. You can make them specific or general, but please don't be shy. Richard, tell us a little bit about what a lifelong commitment to this work looks like, and what has helped you sustain yourself over time, you know, and addressing burnout.
Well, you know, I think it's all about curiosity. We have to always want to be thirsty for new experiences. And that doesn't mean to just jump around and piddle paddle with one thing and then throw it in the corner and go do something else. Try to be dedicated with your reasoning for what you choose to do at any given time, because I'm in my studio. I'm surrounded by stacks and stacks of unfinished pieces of work, and also a piece on the easel that I'm working on. So when I sit back and observe how I spent my time and energies, none of it has gone for naught, because things are finished when you stop working on them. And when other people see in what you do, if you've done your best effort as far as you want to take it, your inspiration may go gear down a little bit. You know, when you jump on something new, you're all ready to go, and you're just throwing color everywhere until that piece starts to say, look, 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 look at me, look what you're doing. And you start to see something within your own energy. You know, when your energy goes into what you do with passion, you start to curtail your enthusiasm for a little bit more of the detail of what you're really expressing. And so when we approach people, we need to look at people eye to eye and really connect with people, communicate with people. Don't jump in and start talking without hearing your other person. Good listeners make better conversationalists, because you're actually giving and taking, and you're helping to shape a connection. So with these many connections that go on in my life, I've always been inquisitive about who people are, and I want to hear about them. And then if there may be some commonalities, they may not want to know anything about me, so I don't go say, yeah, man, I did that. It ain't good. Those are the kind of people that run away from you. So I like privacy, because privacy is how things grow, and you can be a self-critic, and you can do your best when you are looking at it honestly. You always want to be focused, stay focused, and have intentions for doing the best job you can, and don't let it go until you know it's the best you can do.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Nina. You're great too. You got your thing going on. I love what you do. I love the way you handle yourself, and you are very appropriate for everything.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you, Mr. Watson. Aram, you have something to weigh in on. Yes.
Yeah, I think how I stay focused, and how, you know, I don't, well, I guess as an artist, you know, and as a non-citizen for so long, right? Immigrant for over 25 years. And yeah, I've always seen the world from this place, and always questioning in terms of like, wait, where am I in this conversation, right? Because there's so many conversations, like voting, right? And that doesn't include me and my history or my story, right? So then seeing that, and then having, you know, it took a lot of it took many years to like develop that courage to be like, wait, no, I need to tell the story then. Yeah. Right. And then with an art practice, I think what's so powerful is that for me, I use art to, you know, create things in the world that I really want to see. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's why I create voting stations for people who can't legally vote, because I want to see that in the world. You know, I created a project that has been so, you know, active and busy since 2016, which is called the Protest Banner Lending Library, right? Where I do workshops teaching people how to create protest banners, and their physical lending libraries where anyone can come and check out as many banners as they want for as long as they want, right? And so I think, you know, for me, it all comes back to community, right? In terms of like how I stay focused and how I catch my breath, right? Because I created these things that I want to see in the world, there's so many other people who have come up to me and said, that's actually what I want to see too in the world, right? Mm-hmm. And then they volunteer their time, they volunteer their energy, they give me their words of support, and they keep me going, you know? And so I think that's really important, that us as individuals, we have that power to create the things that we want to see, right? And if you want to see them, then I'm sure a ton of other people want to see them too.
Yeah, definitely. Wonderful. I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more. Just to pop in a piece of personal information, I'm the absolute same way. You know, my background is in, you know, film and African American studies. I'm also an author, poet, performer, curator. And specifically for me right now in media, there's tons that I'd love to see that I haven't seen yet. And while we're in this really beautiful, expansive space where we're seeing more artists and filmmakers of color and media makers, non-binary, across the spectrum of gender expression showing up in these wonderful ways, there's still stories that I don't see. So I absolutely love that there's still so much room for growth and for expansion in every way we express ourselves. I have a question for you, but we have a Q&A question, so I want to jump right into that from Miss Marla Campbell Harris. She says, good evening, how are you? How are you / have you kept yourself whole, healthy, and well in your work of activism? How do we engraft sustainability and self-care in the work of activism? That goes for anyone can jump in on that one.
Take time for yourself. And when you've had enough, back off, because the work is going to be there when you come back. So sometimes it's just a matter of saying, I have to back away. It's too much.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get back on the horse when you're ready, not when somebody else is ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead, Mia.
I was going to say, just to piggyback of that, when you take your time off for yourself, I think one of the most important things you need to do as a leader is making sure you help creating other leaders. So when you do take that step back, that position is automatically filled by someone that you trust to have that position and to be in that activist space. So when you take that time for yourself and you recognize your limits and you know what, this is time for me to take a step back and to breathe and kind of collect myself and my thoughts, you wholeheartedly know and are okay with doing that and feel good doing that, because someone that you know that you've helped turned into this beautiful, amazing leader who knows what they want just as much as you do and just as passionate as you are is going to fill that role.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in for a second here. I was watching one of my favorite shows right now on television, viewer discretion advised, Lovecraft Country. And I was watching the episode, the most recent one. And without giving away too much context, essentially it was the funeral of Emmett Till, and one woman had stayed back and decided not to go. And the other woman said to her, you know, today you chose yourself, and that's a different kind of bravery, right? And so I think that we are constantly struggling or reconciling as artists and as activists when we need to take a step back for ourselves to recharge and refuel. You know, the saying comes often, you can't pour from an empty cup. It is so important to remove certain levels of guilt for not being every single place every time. And that's why we need each other so much, because when I'm not there, you're there. And when you're not there, she's there. And when he's, you know, and so we need each other, and it doesn't exist in a vacuum. That's my 2 cents there. Anyone else? We have another question, but anybody else want to jump in on that before we move forward?
Nina.
Yeah.
I like to say that Karen can also attest to the fact that aligning with that statement is that when we were picketing at Girard College for those 7 months, there were times when there were 15, 20 of us out there, and then there were times when there were 3 of us out there walking around in the picket line. Sometimes it would be raining, we'd bring umbrellas, and 4 people showed up, but there was always, we kept that light burning. We kept that candle lit in all kinds of circumstances. That's the beautiful part of being a part of something where you don't have to do it all. You know, somebody's got your back and everybody's committed, but everybody's a human being who has personal needs and family needs. But as long as somebody's there holding up that banner, you know, you have an organization.
Absolutely.
Erin, there you go. Still in there.
Thank you. Wow, we've got a couple more questions. We're going to jump right into them. So I have an answer for a question already that's straightforward. Then we're gonna jump into those next questions. So the question was, where can we see Aram's work in Philadelphia? The answer, her work is a part of the To the Polls 2020, that being launched at Love Park tomorrow, and a second will be installed at Asian Arts Initiative. Also, for those that are newer to these chats, Victoria also does a follow-up email that gives you a list of resources from the talk the night before. So have no fear, that will be in a place you can grab that as well. Our next question, let's see. How do you stay motivated to your inspiration to make change? I think we kind of covered that a little bit, but if you want to jump in really quickly, I'm going to try to get to all of our questions. We have about 2 more, and then I have a closing question. So if one of our panelists want to jump in on how you stay motivated to your inspiration to make change.
Okay.
Anybody want to jump in?
I will do this because the dead air doesn't help us. I think the dedication comes from the sincerity of who we are as people. I think we don't question being involved, even when we're not there physically. What we are emanating from us is stick-to-itiveness. We are about our missions in life, and that they don't happen overnight, and they don't happen continuously. When we take pause, we are rejuvenating ourselves as creative people. And someone would think that when we were in our studios, I don't hear you working, you're not working, you just been messing around. You have to sit, and you have to allow that space to develop around you. You're not the one who goes in and constructs a creative atmosphere out of brick and mortar. It comes out of your presence of mind to be stimulated by who you are. So when people are trying to evoke change in a society or change in a circumstance of their own, in their own environment, it takes contemplation and before you go into action, so you don't foolhardily burn yourself out or do something that's totally off base. So I think as long as you're consistent and you're conscientious and you have this integrity to be a part of it, and for the long haul, we're in this for the long haul. You know, we will go down swinging or singing or doing what we do, dancing or painting. I think we won't give it up until somebody snatches the brush out of your hand or tells you to sit down, you can't dance. You know, that was young. You were doing that ballet. Don't try to do that. You can hardly walk. So that's the deal. That's the deal.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, here's our last Q&A question, and then I have a closing question. How do we as artivists stop Black Lives Matter from morphing into Black Lives Marketing, ? A lot of orgs, companies, and government officials are using this moment to brand themselves on the right side of history, but aren't truly invested in real change. How do artivists keep their integrity and utilize platforms that might not be genuine? Excellent question. Anybody can jump in on that.
I don't think you can stop it, because people are going to capitalize and try to make money on anything that's out there. But I guess for the person, they keep your eye on the prize. I guess that's the best way I could put it. And you keep telling your truth, you know. And if that's not your if that's your goal, you just have to keep on doing what you're doing. You can't stop anybody else from making money. The other thing you have to do, if these people are saying they're for Black Lives Matter or anything else, you have to hold their feet to the fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you have to call them out for not doing the things that they say they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's so important, is like, you know, just keep asking questions, right? And that's so important to do just anyways, right?
Yeah.
But like exactly what Karen said, right? It's like, yeah, I make a joke that like everything I love is like co-opted by capitalism, you know, because it is. You know? Yeah. And so it is so important, you know, and we know when things are shallow, right? Yeah. We know that because we feel it in our gut and we can see that, right? So keep asking those questions, right? Because like, yeah, when, you know, I got a ton of emails that were like, we are for Black Lives Matter. And then I sent a ton of emails back that were like, tell me specifically how you are for Black Lives Matter, you know? And so like, once you ask those questions, and we have to all collectively keep asking those questions so we rupture those cracks, right? And then make people and places accountable, because it's coming out of their mouths, right?
I would agree with that 100%, Aram. To jump in with that, a great way also is just to check the official website and see who's aligned and how. You know, a great plug I mentioned earlier for the Breathe Act, the legislation that's backed by Ayanna Pressley is breatheact.org. That's a resource I hope that we share. And there it will lead you to a number of official resources for that. And I would also just use discernment, you know, if you have an artist statement that says what you're about, think every time you're approached by a major company, does this align with what I'm about? Am I okay with my name or my brand being attached to this without it, the message getting distorted in some way? And how would that affect, you know, my brand, my message, and the movement that I'm trying to help? So I wanted to do another quick message. We are still looking for a wall for the Cecil B Moore Freedom Fighters mural, which Karen and Richard are a part of. And if someone here has a wall, you can email community@muralarts.org. Again, that's community@muralarts.org. We are searching for a wall. My last and final question for everyone here, and if we could, everybody do maybe a 30-second summary. And this is really big, guys. How will the work you do shift if the outcome of the election is in limbo, or if the sitting president gets another term? How will the work you do shift, or the approach, right? And yes, I know we'll keep going, all of those things, but specifically, how might you change your approach if the outcome is in limbo, or if the sitting president gets another term? Because we have to keep working, y'all, no matter what. That's the overall message. So what are we doing?
I don't think the work is going to stop. Maybe the focus might change. But I don't think the work itself stops, because you're going to still have suffering. You're going to still have lack of housing, lack of education, lack of jobs. So that doesn't change. I don't care who's in power. That doesn't change. So that won't stop the work.
Thank you.
I agree wholeheartedly. The work, it never stops. It never has stopped. Even when the world stopped for this entire pandemic, the work that I've been doing with the Philadelphia Youth Commission, we have never stopped working, because while we can take a 2-second like breath or break, the world is still moving, and we need to move with the world in order to create progress and change. So I will continue to work, and if what happens in November, I'll work even harder. My work will never stop. It'll only get more fierce.
Thank you.
Yeah, the you know, so much of rage fuels my creative practice, you know, so like bring it on, you know, and and like, you know, Karen and Mia were saying, it's like, you know, when, for me, the focus is being, you know, coming from my community of non-citizen immigrants, right? So like, when has there ever been a time where like the system served us? Never, right? Yeah. And it just gets worse and worse. And so we just have to, yeah, we just got to escalate, right? We got to fight harder and keep going.
Absolutely. Thank you, Aram. Richard.
Yeah, I would say that every millennium has its ups and downs and its evolutions and its revolutionary political circumstances, and the creative force that is driven during those times is more intense than they are now, because I think it rallies people toward addressing a very focused agenda for being a part of that change, because we are change agents to the max when we have somebody throws fuel on that fire that's suppressing us. We have things that break through the turmoil and the confusion with clarity. because it gives you another level of interpretation of the problem. You don't have time to dilly-dally and look and do something cute, because you can't be distracted as much by the frivolities of just what's in style. Survival is in style when it's the fan. So you got to be ready to come with your best game and let it all out and explore the mediums to the max, and don't hold back, because as long as we are all having that voice within our creative communities, we will always be the vanguard for helping people to realize where they are without the dogma of politics, religion, or whatever, because the substance is in the substance of what we do is the strength of the message that we want to put out here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Want to do a quick plug for @PHL Youth is where you can follow the Youth Commission here in Philadelphia. All of our panelists also, the resources that they mentioned today, we're going to gather those and get those out in a follow-up email. So if you haven't already, please check in at muralarts.org. And then we want to thank all of our panelists, Erin Wilson, Mia Velez, Karen Asper Jordan, Aram Han Sifuentes, Richard Watson, and I am Nina Lyrispect Ball. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. This has been Generations of Change. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.